Hello. Thank you very much for sitting through this at this hour. My images didn't load up. They didn't come here until 2 seconds ago. I just had to transfer it. So if that didn't work out, I think I'd be dancing on the stage instead of talking to you about this. So I've been involved in the contemporary art world for 30 plus years. And I've always made digital art. And because the art world has a certain mentality, which I'll get into a little bit more, it's always been rough going for me. I've been teaching and writing and then having to resort to other means to make a living for the past 3 decades until NFTs came into my life over a year ago. But I'm going to just give some background on the influences and what brought me to this stage today. This is an installation by a conceptual artist, Vito Acconci. We're in Times Square right now, fitting enough for this image. Vito Acconci made an installation in 1972 in Iliana Sonnabend in New York called Seabed, where he was masturbating under this fake floor in a gallery that he built, and that was his performance. We're in Times Square, where a lot more of that used to go on, possibly in this very venue that we're sitting in. And this is another piece where he was grinding cockroaches into his pubic region. What really struck me about this work, besides the fact that if he could make a living out of masturbating, I thought perhaps I found my calling, was the fact that, like Duchamp put a urinal in a gallery in 1917 or thereabouts, and it really just opened up the possibilities of what art could be. Art could be anything. In this case, Vito was trying to make art that couldn't be absorbed into the marketplace in this movement called dematerialization. But skipping the kind of provocative nature of these pieces, he went on to he's in every major museum collection across the globe. And at the same time, he was never able to commercially monetize his body of work. There's another artist that was highly influential for me, an artist called Paul Thek. He died, he's an American artist, died in 1988 of AIDS. He had a show at Pace Gallery, one of the biggest galleries in the 60s. Then he moved to Europe, and before the advent of social media, when you were out of sight, outside of one of the major markets for art, you were gone. So this is this kind of fake flesh, fake meat construction that he made. This is one where he got Warhol to give him a Brillo box, one of Warhol's sculptures, and then he put this shard of fake flesh, fake meat that was meticulously handcrafted out of wax and pigment. And for me, it was perfectly encapsulated this kind of the fragility of life and this kind of thread, the vulnerability that we face as humans. And again, like Paul Thek, having gone from a certain degree of notoriety and success early in his career, moved to Europe and ended up not having a career because he couldn't communicate back to the States and to the art market what he was doing. He did a lot of different things, and the art world usually affirms repetition in a body of work. Paul Thek ended up in his later life moving back to New York, where he kept a rent control department in the East Village and died destitute working in a supermarket. So it's a giant misconception that many people have about art and NFTs, that art is expensive to own. That's just really not the case. I've never studied art. I studied philosophy, and then I went to law school, not because I was interested in the law, that was never the case, but I just didn't know what to do with a philosophy degree. And I had no idea that art was even bought or sold. I never went to museums as a child. I went to museum when I was in university. Then when I found art, I went to Andy Warhol's estate sale in the late 80s, and that was like an epiphany where it was the very first time in my life that I saw that you could own art, you could buy art and collect it. And at that point, I realized, which applies to, it is 9:40, 50. It occurred to me that I could teach anyone about the entire contemporary art world in 6 months off the street without any interest. But then I realized, if I really wanted to have a deeper understanding, I'd have to know the history from cave drawings to Renaissance and Old Masters. So rather than go back to school, I conned my way into a teaching job at the New School, got 6 lectures, I would read 3 chapters of the book Jansen's art history book, then drink a big fat beer because I was petrified, and then teach. And it would just go like that from week to week. So I'm largely self-taught. But I think one of the most important things about NFTs and the art world today is that a lot of arrogant fuckers in the art world think that they know better, they know more, and they could teach you what you should know about art in relationship even to NFTs, but that's just not the case. For the past year, I've spent every single day of my life starting from zero after 33 long years slogging away in the art world to learn everything I can about crypto and the NFT world. This is a book I wrote on Paul Tech that I contributed to, published by MIT. When I first went to art galleries, I was nearly 27. You could see that I have a real good skill for drawing and never took an art class in my life. But you have these gigantic foreboding desks and this kind of exclusionary attitude where people pigeonhole you, whether you're a collector, a buyer, or this or that, but it's so stifling. And it's all about, I always say the only word the art world knows is the word NO, no. No, you can't do this. No, you can't say that. No, you can't behave like this. And that's really awful. And my whole career, I've been teaching since 1992. Now I teach at University of Zurich, NYU, School of Visual Arts, and I pretty much lecture these days twice a day during NFT.NYC. But I teach all the time, and my role, like I just did studio critiques at the Art Institute of Chicago last week, one of the most prestigious art schools, and I said, you know, I'm not here to criticize your work. What the hell do I know? I never took an art class in my life. But what I could do is encourage you how to create a life for yourself, doing what you dream and what you love, which is what I've been able to do largely with the help over the past year with NFTs. I never dreamt in a million years I would be able to actually make a living off of doing the thing that I loved and cared about the most. This is just some dickhead art collector who I actually snuck some NFTs into the Basel Art Fair in Switzerland. I'll get to that in a second. But this Belgian collector who sleeps in an Ascot, I think, he made a comment in the press that he was glad there were no Americans in the Basel Art Fair because of travel restrictions and COVID. He was glad because it enabled him and other collectors to be able to talk about art. And Americans just run up to the booth and want to know how much something costs, and it precludes other people having the opportunity to look at the art and talk about the art, which is, I mean, last I remember, an art fair is a commercial context to buy and sell art. So if there's not a better place to ask what the price is, I don't know what it is. Also, like if you go to a major art gallery like Hauser and Wirth or Gagosian in town, and you dare like ask how much something costs, they look at you like you're a lunatic. The people behind the desk are petrified, and they start making phone call after phone call, like not knowing what to do. The art world is all about this kind of hypocrisy and pretentiousness, and it really annoys me. This was a dumb video I made. Every day there's like 500 more platforms to sell NFTs. And everybody talks about like building the bridge between the traditional art world and NFTs. And I'm more interested, this is a little short artwork that I made. It has sound, but you're not missing anything. This is Pace Gallery, who's one of the galleries that actually has a very proactive stance on technology. This is the bridge between the old art world and the new art world. There's me, the little shit stirrer who didn't get enough attention as a child. Boom. So like, I don't want to build the bridge. I want to blow the bridge up. I'm sick and tired of all the bullshit in the contemporary art world. And this is the opportunity. This is the first time I've been 33 years in art. And I've clawed my way to sitting right here in this seat today. It hasn't been easy, and it's always going to be a hustle. But I mean, I couldn't be a happier clam than I am sitting here today at this early hour on a few espressos. I mean, 2 seconds ago, my file never arrived to show these slides, so you really would have been suffering had I not had the great tech support I have backstage. So I'm so old that it used to be to communicate visually what one human being was doing to another, you'd have to take these little photographic slides and send them in a sheet of plastic, 20, and then hold them up to a light, and that was the only way, whoa, giving myself feedback. That was the only way to communicate what one person was doing to another person. And this wasn't like 1,000 years ago. Hamburgers were 5 cents, blah, blah, blah. This was like in the 90s. So then along came Instagram. And even though I think Mark Zuckerberg is I hope his metaverse crashes like that blowing up bridge, because if there's anyone that shouldn't be wielding as much power as this, it's really kind of creeps me out. Like Instagram has really helped crush the geographical boundaries for people to express themselves, but the amount of algorithmic control over just talking to your own friends and acquaintances is outrageous, and it should not be countenanced. I mean, if there's ever a good role for the government in centralization, it's to stop him and break that company up, and it's just bullshit. But anyway, I'm a little bit opinionated, even at this hour, if you haven't noticed. But Instagram was the first time in history where artists can communicate from one person to the other. So this is a woman, 2.5 years ago, I came across her artwork on Instagram, and I just was smitten. And I remember writing her an email like, who are you? What are you? Are you old? Are you young? Who's this naked woman in all your paintings? Are you straight? Are you gay? Do you have kids? Blah, blah, married. Turns out she was 64 years old, Hungarian woman living in Vienna, showing in a very sleepy gallery in Vienna with no art market. And the naked woman in her paintings was a depiction of herself. Both of her parents survived the Holocaust. She had diaries from her mom that her mother smuggled out of the concentration camp, and she was only able to read them after the death of her mother. And there were situations where they would just make women walk around naked and work all day, and if you didn't do enough work, you just get shot in the head in your seat. And I just found the work to be so touching, and yet somehow she managed to make it humorous and so painterly. And were it not, so since I just found her work on Instagram, again, like it's a great misconception to think that art or NFTs are expensive. Some of my favorite artists making NFTs, brilliant artists, you could buy work for $35. Sarah Friend, one of the most fantastic artists in the space today. Anyway, so I found Eva's work. I curated her into a bunch of shows. We're now showing together in Athens on the 11th of November. She had a sellout show in LA. She sold 100 paintings, and her life has been upended through Instagram in the same way that NFTs have literally changed every aspect of my existence since I first entered the market last September. This is another dumb artwork I made. But like there's a lot of fear of missing out, a lot of pressure once you enter the NFT market about making money. This was when about fear of missing out, and Ethereum goes up, NFTs go down. Ethereum goes down. There's a lot of volatility in the market, which I think is kind of exciting and fun, but it's tough and it's not easy. And to think that anyone could just step into the market is a mistake. I could see my time is running out. So right now you have collectibles, PFPs going crazy, and that's where all the action is. They're basically just a substitute. They're like stocks with cartoon imagery instead of share certificates. And then you have the generative stuff, which is probably ahead of the collectibles now. But to buy art, one of ones, it takes more work and more effort to dig and to discover, but there's such great opportunities. There's another artist, Rhea Myers, who used to go by the name Rob Myers, who's just an incredible artist. Kevin Abash is a little more well-known in the sector. But you have, these are just random images of crazy babies I pulled off Google, but it looks kind of like a PFP, my next PFP collection. So I actually, of course, while I'm criticizing them and satirizing them, I actually made some myself called Crypto Mutts. And the idea was kind of like a joke where I took all the different PFPs and put them in a blender and came up with these mutts. We're all mutts. Mongrels, misfits, and that's kind of the beautiful part of this space. And what to me is more, this is like the WeWork guy. There's a great documentary about him. I think he kind of should be in jail because he was always talking about how successful and profitable his company was, but he never made any profit. But what I think was really great about WeWork and is this kind of, this sense of community. So for me, NFTs are nothing. What's an NFT? It's a digital certificate of authenticity piggybacking on an Ethereum token. But NFTism is all of us sitting in the room in Times Square at this godforsaken hour talking about this shit. And the sense, like it reminds me of the art world when I first got involved in the early 90s during a deep recession where people had no interest in money. It was all about art runs through your circulatory system. We're all here because we have shared interests, which are NFTs, art, collectibles, whatever it is, sports, music, dancing. It incorporates everything. And what I love about this space, which is radically transformed every day of my life, ding, 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 my time is up and I'm gonna speed it up, is the fact that everyone has an opportunity. Sure, you have to have a following, you have to have an audience. If you just jump into open sea, you'll drown. You have to be able to hustle and get your work out there. Art is about communication and expression. And a lot of people in the fine art world, which is a misnomer, forget the point that we're all people, we're working together, we're coexisting together, and we need to find a way to help each other. I've had such great experiences of people working for months on end, helping to educate me, walking me through the process of, like, this is my Discord where I get ripped a new butthole every day by all of the people that own my mutts. And you know what? I'd rather be beholden to people that paid $80 for an NFT of mine and learn from this experience than deal with these ascot-wearing, arrogant snobs. It's stifling to my existence. So I'm learning really hard. I call it metadata, metadata, because the experience is so overwhelming and so philosophical. This is a NFT show I did. I'm going to wrap it up quick. But there was a gallery in Germany that hated NFTs, and they were in a competitive battle with another dealer in Germany who said they would never appreciate technology. So they called me up after I wrote my first article on ArtNet. You could read all my writing. Email me or DM me or Twitter me anytime you want. If you have any questions, I'm happy and I feel compelled to help anyone in any way I can, crack into any of the fields that I have some little bit of expertise in. So this gallery basically wanted me to, they wanted to pick my brain, and that doesn't take long, as you could see, to do an NFT show. And I said, I'm not gonna help you do it unless you hire me to do it. And then I did this show, and they rocked up just at the opening, and the gallery fell in love with NFTs to the extent that they put me in the Basel Fair. I'm gonna do a huge installation in the fair in Basel, Miami. Please come and say hello or get in touch if you're there. And now they're opening an NFT gallery in Berlin, which is amazing, when they weren't even interested in the space. I curated a show at Institute in London. I'm finished. It was the biggest NFT show. This was the installation in Basel. I'm doing a metaverse space with the architect Zaha Hadid. This is about NFTs. We're all human. We're all filled with imperfections. But I have never in my entire career seen a space that is so welcoming. I'll start weeping if I think about it. But like, it's amazing that I'm sitting here. It's even more amazing you're sitting there listening to me. And I'm just so appreciative and so grateful to have this opportunity to talk to you and to be able to wake up and work in the NFT space. And I've made a living I'm 59 years old, I'm not a baby. And for the first time in my life, I heard the last speaker mention the same thing. Like, I never dreamt that I'd be able to make a living doing what I care the most about besides my family. And this is it. And it's thanks to all of you and thanks to NFT.NYC. And I'm just a very happy camper right now. Thank you so, so much.